Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Joe from Gadgetry Tech, and in today's video, I'm going to talk about the in-ear monitors from a company called Padsmith, which at the time of filming this is $115. It's a hybrid arrangement using a single dynamic driver with a micro-planar tweeter, and it has a low impedance of only 22 ohms, being relatively easy to drive at 105 dB sensitivity. Now, as the name suggests, Padsmith is a mousepad company, primarily. That's how I discovered them, and I've been following them online for a while, and I've always wanted this mousepad. I finally got it a few months ago. This is the Crucible Temple of Dreams, and for the price, it is exceptional, not only in the print quality, but the performance for mice and also the durability. That's a big thing when you have dark mouse pads like this. You tend to have to clean them pretty frequently using like a damp microfiber. I still recommend doing that with these just to keep it clean, but the surface material is much more durable at resisting kind of getting dirty or discolored in the first place. Naturally, this video is about the IEMs, but I will have a link in the description below to take a look online to shop these, because when you look at the performance and the print quality versus the price, that's kind of where Padsmith has a really good niche created for them. Focusing back on the IEM, I want to talk about the packaging because it is huge. This is like one of the largest boxes I've ever seen for an IEM, regardless of price. Usually they're not this large because I think they want to keep prices down with shipping. So maybe this will change over time, but I love the way it's presented out of the box. When you first open it, the IEM is already attached to the cable, it's coiled up, and everything just presents like you have a much more expensive IEM than what you paid for. Now the case is a little bit larger, and some people may or may not like that. It has the Padsmith logo on it, which I don't mind, but it's a nice zip up case, and it's large enough to fit like a DAP or a dongle if you want to have other accessories included. It comes with 3 pairs of white silicone tips in 3 different sizes, and it even comes with this little like hard case to present them in. A lot of IEMs, even at higher prices, they put everything in like paper and cardboard, and it's kind of like one-time use. It's obviously, once you get the tips that you like, you shouldn't be touching this too often, but I do like that they gave you this little way of storing the tips in case you got extras. You can always switch them out. So overall, accessories and packaging is quite nice. Now moving on to the cable. The cable itself uses a standard 2-pin. I like the fact that it's a 2-pin because it's really easy to buy your own aftermarket cables, but even the included cable is really nice. The only thing that I'm going to point out is you can tell it's a little bit kink prone on the skinnier part. It doesn't lay quite as flat. That's the real only criticism I have of this particular cable. On the other side of the little collar, if you will, where it kind of merges into one, the cable's thick enough, it doesn't have that same effect. And I think it looks really nice. The silver kind of ties into the tips really well. Naturally, being a 2-pin, you can buy your own. This is the triple-win cable, which is only 20 bucks, because the shell of these guys is purple, and I thought it would look really cool together. So if you really want to be dripping in purple, you can get a cable like this, and it's only 20. This too has kind of like that same kink effect. It's not that it's significantly better. I got this more for the cosmetic purposes, of course, but don't buy cables because you expect a massive sonic difference. Usually get it so it has the right length, the right termination in case you want to go balanced. But I just want to point out, if you do buy a new cable for this, just look for a 0.78 millimeter 2-pin. Now on the note of the shell, I love the shell of these for many reasons. I like purple because it's kind of different, and I think it pairs well with the right accessories, kind of giving you a unique flavor in case you are a collector and want different things. But I think the shell is absolutely gorgeous. It's also very comfortable. It's also ported, and the nozzle is not that big as well. Now Padsmith claims a 6.1 millimeter nozzle. So I just want to show you kind of how that translates. There is a little bit of a lip on the nozzle. So if you measure the inside behind the lip, it's 5.4 or about 5.5 millimeters. And then when I go to the edge here, there's the 6.1 where it's coming from, or at least within the margin of error. So it's not a huge nozzle. I like that it has that lip because it's going to keep the tips in place quite well. But this should have a good balance of creating a strong seal and also being very comfortable for longer periods of time. The shell is a resin printed acrylic, if you will. So it's light, it's comfortable, it's smooth. It weighs only 4.4 grams without the tip, and about 4.6 or 4.7 once you add a medium tip like this. On the note of tips, I say this in all my videos, but if this is the first time you're watching an IEM review or you haven't heard this before, play around with tip sizes, because don't just assume that you're a medium and just go run with it. Sometimes you will have a different size tip from left to right, so experiment with that. And maybe size up to see if it gets a better seal without being uncomfortable. Just play around with it. These guys have a lot of deep bass. So if you put these in and you're like, wow, there's no bass, or it sounds really bright and hollow, that's because you have a bad seal. It's not the IEM itself. So please keep that in mind when you're experimenting with different IEMs. Now these are rated at only 22 ohms of nominal impedance. That's the resistance of the IEM. And it doesn't mean it's necessarily easier or harder to drive exclusively, but with a higher sensitivity of 105 decibels, and you pair that with the impedance of 22, these are actually quite easy IEMs to drive, meaning you can plug it into basically anything and get more than enough volume. The thing I want to point out though is being a hybrid system, or anytime you have multiple drivers, the impedance can change based off frequencies. So your low frequencies might have one impedance measurements, and as you get to higher frequencies, it can change. It's not always the case, but in this case it is. So even though it's rated at 22 ohms nominally, as you approach higher frequencies above a few thousand hertz, it dips a lot. This IEM goes down to only about 6 or 7 ohms, which is crazy low. This is really important because, again, if you don't know about IEMs and impedances and amp pairing, you need to connect these to a low output impedance amp to get the most out of them, for them to sound as good as they can. If you hook it up to something like a Focusrite Scarlett, which has a high output impedance, you are going to increase your bass and reduce your treble. Might make them sound muddy, it might make them sound less resolving, and you do lose a couple other sonic qualities as well. It's not purely on the frequency response side. So get something like the FIO K11 or a topping DAC or something from SMSL. Anything that's known to have a low output impedance of under 1 ohm is kind of what you need with something like this. Even less expensive dongle DACs, the Apple dongle has low output impedance, FIO dongle. There are so many options out there, but if you're shopping, make sure it's less than 1 ohm of output impedance. If you don't have that, I don't think you're going to get the same quality you're expecting. Now, getting into the sound quality, I do objective measurements on my channel, so if you're new to that, I use an IEC 711 coupler clone, and I have a database of all of my measurements available in the description below if you want to compare how this measures compared to other IEMs. It's not exclusively telling you the whole story, and obviously your own ear fitment and hearing will affect what you hear, but objective measurements help because it takes my opinion out of it and shows how a particular rig with a standardized testing procedure measures it to sound like. And having said that, this IEM is actually tuned really close to my personal preference. It doesn't have an overly strong sub bass. You know, you compare it to something like the Kiwi Ears KE4. The bass on those are insane. They're about $200, and then it's a more relaxed mid-range presentation. These have a warmer bass note, kind of like the Yanyan Canon 2s that I like, and it's a little bit forward in the 1 to 2K area, which I'll talk about why this is beneficial here in a moment. Relaxed vocal presentation, that's when you get into whole 3 to 4K. It's not that it's like so relaxed that it sounds dark, but it's not overly bright and analytical sounding, especially when you factor in this dip around 6,000 hertz. Now, this peak that you see at 8,000 hertz, part of that is a byproduct of the 711 couplers, which if you look at a lot of different IEM measurements, you're going to see a peak at 8,000 hertz. That is a resonance frequency of the coupler based off the ear canal size of the coupler. So basically, when you do the same type of testing over and over, there's always a resonant frequency of the microphone equipment. This one happens to be at 8,000 hertz. So usually you align the IEM's 8K peak to that. Having said that, there is a little bit of a peak when you combine this having a stronger 8K presentation plus the resonance frequency. It looks worse than it is on the graph, but it is a tad brighter here than the adjacent treble before and after this. This area is something I'm a little bit more sensitive to, so it's the only thing I have a small gripe with, but that's just personal preference. Compared to so many other IEMs out there, this is tuned so well. And for the $115 price point with the comfort and the cable, I actually think Padsmith is onto something really good here. The channel matching, which is how similar the left and right IEM will sound to each other, is pretty much within the smallest margin of error, which is going to help with imaging performance. Which leads me to gaming performance, and I'm going to start with that before the subjective sound quality for like music and stuff, just because I think a lot of people that are following Padsmith and are interested in their IEM, they want to learn about how this performs in game. Channel matching, like left and right performance being nearly identical to each other, is really important for audio cues because you don't want to have any doubt as an object transitions from left to right. If the frequencies aren't the same, it kind of screws up reproducing accurately where the pinpoint of the audio source is. So this is the first key step. Another one is overall tuning. You want to amplify or focus on the right frequencies and not have other frequencies drown it out too much. And having this nice warm bass profile adds some good weight to footsteps, but not having such a strong sub bass, it's not drowning it out as much either. My issue with something like the Crin Ear Meta, which is a great IEM, it's a more expensive IEM, it's fun for music, but the bass was a little bit too strong for a lot of competitive play. So this being a fraction of the price, basically half, let's just say, and having a better performance in FPS gaming, well, that's a noteworthy feat in itself. Now, the 8 kilohertz peak, I do want to tie this into what you hear subjectively. And what I notice is, a certain like cocking of the gun, glass breaking in game, that sound has just a little bit sharper spike to it. And some people won't notice this. Some people aren't that sensitive to 8K. A lot of gaming headsets have a strong peak there in general, and most people don't complain about it. So that's the only area where if I'm doing any kind of EQ, I would do like, let's say -3 decibels with a Q of 3 or 4 at 8,000 hertz. So maybe experiment with that if you're doing custom parametric EQ. Otherwise, just plug it in out of the box and you're off to a really good start. Now, the bass warmth will help with some immersion. It does have good enough sub bass, so if you're playing single player gaming or more casual play, the bass on this isn't just warm, it's actually a nice soft bass. It doesn't sound like overly tight or constrained. So if you want explosions to have really good dig to them, these definitely do that. But in gaming, 1 to 3,000 hertz is really critical for footstep cues, because that's where the combat boot that's making that sound effect, that's in that area. So this being a little bit more forward is definitely going to help with that. And I like that the tuning seems intentional for something like that. Now, the relaxed area, the whole 4K to 6K being a little bit recessed, the only byproduct of that is, one, it's less fatiguing, so it's easier to listen to at higher volumes, minus that 8K peak, but it might not sound as clear or resolving to you. So if you find that it sounds like it's lacking some detail, go to 4,000 hertz, maybe 4,500 hertz, boost that by 2 or 3 decibels with a Q of 2. Just see if that gets you closer to what your ideal sound signature is, only if this doesn't sound resolving enough. The problem is if you boost that area too much, it might be overly bright and fatiguing. Now, I brought out my favorite IEM I've used for FPS gaming for the past year and a half or so in this price range. This is the Simgot EM6L, and there are some stunning similarities with both of these. This is a hybrid setup as well, but it's using balanced armature drivers instead of micro-planar for the tweeter. Really good sound performance. It too has a warmer bass presentation, but different mid-range and treble tuning. In some cases, I like the Padsmith IEM more. The difference is, to me, this is tuned a little bit better for FPS purely from a frequency response standpoint. I actually like the way they approach detail retrieval on the Padsmith IEM. The Simgot EM6L just comes across as a little bit more clear. One of the advantages with this particular guy is it's really good at playing more subtle detail. And if you do some mild EQ, it goes a long way. Now, some people have had some issues with the shell not holding up, like the tip kind of falling apart. I've had these for a long time. It's one of my oldest IEMs that I have a lot of hours on, and it's held up marvelously. So I don't want to speak for everybody, but mine's been pretty good. I think between the two, nowadays, the Padsmith might be a safer bet just because it's a newer product. I find it really, really comfortable. I like the accessories more. This cable I only put back on for the video, but I think it's not the best looking IEM cable, whereas the Padsmith has a really nice shiny silver. Now this guy is a different IEM that you may not have heard of. It's kind of new and it hasn't been talked about, but I brought it out because there are very similar tuning characteristics when you compare it to the Padsmith IEM. This is going to be a mouthful, but this is the Canera Celeste Queen of Audio, or QOA Mimosa, which is only $100, and it uses a dynamic driver and micro-planar, just like the Padsmith IEM. It also comes with 6 pairs of tips, 3, we'll just say small bore versus large bore. It's like red tips versus purple tips. The reason why I like this one to be considered is you have the option of different terminations. This cable is a more traditional, thicker cable, kind of like what you get from high senior IEMs. A little bit heavier to wear, but less kink prone. But for $100, you can get it in a balanced configuration or a 3.5. And this is the brown, which is going to be unique. The design of this shell varies based off every IEM you get. It's not like it's a standardized, design process. They are gorgeous in purple. They're available in purple, and I wish I got that one, but this is what I have. The reason why I brought this one out is if you use the purple tips that are included, it gets so close to the sound quality of the Padsmith IEM, and it's only $100. So I didn't want to exclude this. I test a lot of IEMs that I don't always review just because I'm trying to understand the market and know where things compare. The difference with this guy, this one is kind of like what the Simgot is in better and worse ways. It's a little bit more clear sounding only because it's a brighter treble presentation. With the purple tips, to me, it's the best version of it. but in some cases, it sounds a little bit too bright, especially in music. For gaming, it's not as noticeable. The idea between these two, just to be blunt, is the Mimosa stages a little bit wider. So if you're chasing and you like a wider soundstage to sound more airy and open, I think the Mimosa has just a slight edge, whereas the Padsmith does a better job of centering the image. And interestingly enough, it kind of falls in between this guy. The EM6L has a really strong center presentation, which is really nice for pinpointing footstep cues, but it doesn't sound as wide and spacious as the Padsmith IEM. I'm bringing all these up because these are all awesome options in this price range. But what's cool about the Padsmith IEM is, one, it's really comfortable. The shell is going to be reliable and durable, and it has a lot of good tuning properties I like from two other very competitive IEMs in this space. On the music side of things, I don't think it's going to do anything that's going to drastically change the game as far as audio performance goes, you know, especially when you have things like the Truth Ear Nova, you have stuff from Kiwi Ears, K-Fine, the Delsey, the Let's Shure S12. There are so many IEMs in this space that have slightly different flavors. I don't really have an issue with this IEM. The only thing that kind of stands out sometimes is because it's more recessed in the like 3 to 4K area, and then it's stronger in 1 to 2. Some stuff might have a little bit more of a shout or nasally presentation. It's really, really minor. This is just me finding, certain things to critique. But the bass performance and profile of this is outstanding. So I'll be reviewing the Truth Ear Blue 2 soon, which I know is a much less expensive IEM, but it is really popular and a lot of people like it. I like this significantly more than the Blue 2. The Blue 2 was too much bass and too much upper treble and not enough like clarity and presentation in the mid-range. So a lot of stuff kind of sounds the same to me. It doesn't have any really good qualities for certain like acoustic instruments and vocals. It's not that it's bad, it's just not my cup of tea. I thought it was overly bright. I will be covering that in depth, but that's why I didn't bring it out. So I think the Padsmith is a really safe option in this price range. I don't think it's going to be perfect. Use some measurements that are on my squiggling site if you want to compare this to others, or maybe check out some other reviews. But huge kudos to Padsmith for coming out with this. I almost wish they picked a name instead of just Padsmith IEM, because maybe they could do other iterations down the road in different price points that are still comparable. Who knows what they do later, but this is a great start. So huge thanks to Padsmith for sending this to me for review. That obviously doesn't affect what I say about it, but I wanted to disclose that. I will have links in the description below to purchase this. No affiliate links whatsoever. I do no marketing specials. I don't want you to think that monetization is any way to motivate or influence my channel. So it's just a friendly link, same thing as Googling it. With that being said, thank you so much for watching this and making it to the end. Don't forget to like and subscribe so I can see you at the next video. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time.